Hello, everyone. Mm.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Emmanuel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's class.
I'm gonna give it like one more minute and see how many more people come. Thank you, Emmanuel. I had a last minute trip to El Salvador and I did not have a lot of reception where I was. So I left you in the trusted hands of Pablo, which hopefully did you guys good and you understand paycheck or not pay, well, yeah, paychecks, your pay stub. Okay, let's see. My vacation went well. I mean, it was part vacation, part work, and the work did not get done, but the vacation got handled. And I didn't get to see her, but Shakira was in town. So on my flight, there was like a bunch of people from Colombia to go see Shakira. 30,000 people came over the border from Guatemala to El Salvador to go see her. It was pretty cool. So like at my Airbnb, there was a bunch of like cars from Guatemala. It was funny. Okay. Let's close the survey and then I'm going to do some opening class announcements or beginning of the class announcements. So just to remind everybody, make sure that you have your cameras on and that you're ready to participate when you get called on. Um, your workbooks are due Friday. If you can, try to submit them tonight so you don't forget about it, but they are due Friday at 5 p.m. Additionally, if you want to go to the field trip to the finance park this Saturday, there's still 11 spots open, so you can RSVP. That information should be in the chat below if you need an RSVP for that. I will be there, so glad to see you guys. If you didn't go last week, or maybe you went last week and you want to go again, and see what kind of random profile you get, but you still can RSVP there is no deadline now. So you can RSVP up until the night before. But go ahead and do that. The information is in the chat. Now I'm going to go over our little poll here. Okay, let's see. How do you usually react when plans change suddenly? So today's class is going to be about adaptability and contingency planning. So this is like a little preview. Panic and get stressed. That is not the majority, so I'm happy for you guys. I try to address but struggle. that's half of us. That's probably all of us, but half of us. I stay calm and look for alternatives. That 15%, you guys are solid. And you're probably more than you are in that category than you think, but I like that. I'm very flexible and I adapt quickly. That's good. That's probably an athlete. If I had to guess the two people, those people are probably in sports. But yes, we all sort of react differently. And part of the thing that controls or drives how we change or react is sort of what skills that we have for our own kind of like stress levels, our own discipline, our own ability to understand, like we talked about, that sometimes failure is an opportunity to grow. So I have, through my life, my career as an attorney, learned to stress much less. I do stress, but as you imagine, things don't always go the way you want. When I deal with individuals or if I deal with opposing counsel, sometimes it can be frustrating, and I try not to panic if things happen, or things suddenly change where I think I have a deal, and then all of a sudden somebody freaks out about it. And so it's easy to kind of want to stress. And a lot of the times I'm in the position of having to calm everybody down because I'm the attorney. Everyone looks to me. I was not born that way. It was definitely a skill that I honed over time. And then as I do, the work that I do more often, you start to see patterns and you realize, this could be one of those instances where it doesn't actually fall apart, but I have these skills, I can handle it, I know that things will work out. How often do you create backup plans? Never. Only when I'm worrying. Okay. Sometimes when it's important. Valid. Almost always. It helps me stay calm. I don't think I have sat down and really done a backup plan. I'm actually curious what backup planning looks like. I sort of have, I think these things will go this, or this way. If it goes this way, here's what you do. If it goes that way, here's what you do. If it goes this way, I don't know. I will figure it out. So I'm actually kind of excited about talking to you guys about backup plans because I think it'll help me. But it's not one of those things that you inherently think you need to have. Like a backup plan is like you're hiking and you're lost. You hope you have a backup plan. But there's backup plans or different contingencies. Or you hear it, I want to be a singer, but my backup plan is to be a doctor. You're like, okay, I want to be this, but, I'm going to go to college for this and we'll see what happens. But it could also be, as simple as a backup plan for, studying or what classes you're going to take or what schools you're going to go to. So a lot of the times we don't really think about it in our day to day, actually. What statement best describes your mindset during change? Why is this happening to me? Yeah. This is annoying, but I'll deal with it. I've been there. I'm there maybe twice a day. Planner, I make detailed steps before acting. Solid. Change helps me grow. The four people who answered this, you were here last semester. You fail better kind of people. Yes, your mindset in all these things sometimes this question's sort of misleading because it depends on the change, right? Depends on sort of what happens. If it's a minor change, like, hey, we're going to go to dinner here rather than there, you're probably not going to be in any one of these categories. But if it's something really big, like, hey, I really thought I was going to go to this school, but I didn't get into it, that's going to take a different kind of change, right? That's going to be a different kind of emotion. So it's okay if you're not any one of these things, or you're all these things in a specific situation. But for the most part, it's good that you have an understanding of how you're going to tend to react to things. A lot of the time, if you know yourself very well, you can help curb a lot of your anxiety by avoiding things are going to like stress you out. Okay, so there is, I think everyone see the results. Oh wait, stop sharing. I don't know how Zoom works. Okay, so let's get into the presentation. Don't know. There we go. Okay. Adaptability. let's go to the third slide. There we go. The second slide. So last week I wasn't here. Pablo was here. I'm probably going to see Pablo maybe Saturday. I'm going to grill him if he did good. But you guys talked about how paychecks, go from gross pay to net pay. So you don't always get your salary is, 60,000, but then they take out taxes from that, right? Then you have to pay for certain things. Maybe you have a healthcare plan or a benefits plan or 401k or something that you're contributing to. So your gross pay is your salary, right? Your hourly rate, that's your gross pay. Net pay is what you're going to get after they take out the taxes. Your W-4 form determines how the government's going to take out your taxes from your paycheck. It's actually going to be the payroll company, and then they send it to the government. You practice reading your pay stub and understanding key tax documents like your W-2, which is what you get at the end of the year. And, you break down the process of mastering the basics of, dealing with your money, planning with your money. So contingency plans, right? Backup plans, being able to mindful of budgeting, not what your gross pay, but what your net pay is going to give you. So, hey, this is how much I can allocate for groceries, for car, for, savings, for hanging out with friends. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so today's learning objectives, we're going to talk about adaptability as a skill, which we build through mindset and repetition, not necessarily personality or talent. We're going to learn how simple contingency planning lowers stress and keeps us focused during challenges, especially those that are unexpected. We're going to apply flexible thinking and practical backup strategies to increase confidence, problem solving, and follow through. So let's go to the next slide. So before we're going to go into this one, we're going to watch a little video. So I'll have the team put that on.
Socrates, one of the founding fathers of Western philosophical thought, was on trial. Many Athenians believed he was a dangerous enemy of the state, accusing the philosopher of corrupting the youth and refusing to recognize their gods. However, Socrates wasn't feared for claiming to have all the answers, but rather for asking too many questions. While he loathed formal lectures, the philosopher frequently engaged friends and strangers in lengthy conversations about morality and society. These discussions weren't debates, nor would Socrates offer explicit advice. In fact, the philosopher often claimed to know nothing at all, responding to his partner's answers only with further questions. But through this process, Socrates probed their logic, revealing its flaws and helping both parties reach a more robust understanding. These insightful questions made Socrates beloved by his followers. Two of his students, Plato and Xenophon, were so inspired that they replicated their mentor's process in fictional dialogues. These invented exchanges provide perfect examples of what would come to be known as the Socratic method. In one of these fabricated dialogues, Socrates is conversing with a young man named Euthydemus, who is confident that he understands the nature of justice and injustice. Socrates probes the student's values by asking him to label actions such as lying and theft as just or unjust. Euthydemus confidently categorizes them as injustices, but this only prompts another question. Is it just for a general to deceive or pillage a hostile army? Euthydemus revises his assertion. He claims that these actions are just when done to enemies, and unjust when done to friends. But Socrates isn't finished. He asked the young man to consider a commander lying to his troops to boost their morale. Before long, Euthydemus is despondent. It seems that every answer leads to further problems, and perhaps he's not quite sure what constitutes justice after all. In employing this question-oriented approach, Socrates described himself as a midwife, whose inquiries assist others in giving birth to their ideas. His method of questioning draws out an individual's unexamined assumptions and then challenges those biases. It doesn't always provide definitive answers, but the method helps clarify the questions and eliminate contradictory or circular logic. And by following a line of inquiry where it logically leads, both the question asker and answerer can end up in unexpected places. This technique isn't limited by the conversation's content, making it incredibly useful in numerous fields. During the Renaissance, the method was used to teach clinical medicine. Students proposed their rationale for different diagnoses, while a doctor questioned their assumptions and moderated discussion. In this model, the method could even produce conclusive results. This same approach was later used in other sciences, such as astronomy, botany, and mathematics. Following the Protestant Reformation, it was adapted to tackle abstract questions of faith. In the 19th century, the method became an essential part of American legal education. Professors explored students' understanding of judicial reasoning by challenging them with unforeseen hypothetical situations. This approach is still used today by the Supreme Court to imagine the unintended impacts of passing a law. The Socratic method can be adapted to teach almost any topic that relies on critical reasoning, but its success depends on the teacher employing it. An effective Socratic educator must be well-versed in their subject. Rather than bullying their students or showing off their superior intellect, they should be modest, genuinely curious, and affirming of every contribution. In this regard, Socrates himself may not have been the most subtle Socratic teacher. Historians believe he was deeply critical of Athens' particular brand of democracy and known to pass those concerns on to his followers. These subversive beliefs were distorted in public forums and thought to have inspired two of his pupils to treasonous ends. It was likely for these ideas Socrates was brought to trial and eventually sentenced to death. But even on his deathbed, artists depict a serene philosopher, ever curious to explore the ultimate question. What was life like in Socrates' Athens? Travel back in time to 427 BCE and experience how an ancient democracy made its decisions.
Let's go back to the slide. So as you can imagine, adaptability, change, contingency plans have evolved over time. So in ancient times, they look very different than modern day times, right? Adaptability and contingency would have required a lot of people to go into survival mode, whether they were maybe soldiers or just everyday people. Regime changes happen, right, throughout history. People have come, conquered, changed. One person would take over, another would take over. You have uprisings, you have downrisings. So adaptability is part of human nature. And so when we talk about, how we adapt and, how we think about adapting and sort of having the mental capacity to do it, it begins with understanding that change is normal, right? Change is not likely, a war effort for your everyday life. It's not that serious. But it is something that's going to happen all the time, every day. We know that we face changes all the time. And so it's sort of being able to, if you are the kind of person where you get very overwhelmed by change, or, a slight change really tweaks you, or something that you had scheduled gets interrupted by something else. And, you had it scheduled very specifically and you're very overwhelmed and stressed. A lot of what you have to do in sort of those situations is sort of take a step back. So our first reaction doesn't have to be our final reaction, right? You can take a moment to breathe, pause, not panic. A lot of the times I do consultations. Sometimes I do multiple consultations a day. And each one is, a different scenario. I'm dealing with a different owner, with a different property, with different laws, with different personalities. And I'll be in a consultation and I have to think on my feet. And there's times where someone will ask me something and I'll be stumped and I won't respond. Or I'll tell them I have to think about it. And this is true when maybe I'm talking to opposing counsel and we're trying to negotiate on the phone and they throw something at me and I don't know. Or I get an email about, somebody wants something done, or they want more money, or they want more of this, or they want more of that. And my client goes, what do we do? And a lot of the times I will tell my client I have to think about it. And or I'll tell Gina, who works in my office, she'll message me. She goes, what are you going to say? I go, I'm going to think about it over dinner. I'm going to go get something to drink, or I'm going to make a coffee and I'll think about it. And I found if I give myself the chance to think about it, I will come up with a much better solution than if I feel I have to answer something in the moment that maybe not is the best method or the best way to go about it, that might not get the desired result. So for you, if there's something that you're overwhelmed by or there's some sort of change, it's okay to like take a step back and go, hey, give me a minute or let me think about it. Because you have to give yourself, right? We have to be kind to ourselves, the room to sort of breathe. Yes, change happens. Sometimes you're going to have to act on your feet, but a lot of the times you don't have to. So if you have an opportunity to sort of reflect and it's important to you, that's okay. And it's okay to express that to the other person. Unless, as I learned last semester and we talked about, it's your parents and they want you to clean right now. That's a 50-50. If you could say, hey, I need to think about if cleaning the kitchen is the right move for me right now, mom. But other than that, most things you do have flexibility to like step back and go, okay, let me think about this. Flexibility grows from practice, not personality. So if you think you're an inflexible person, it's not true. I thought I was like that. I was probably a little like that maybe when I was a younger attorney. Now that I'm a little bit older, flexibility is the key to most things, but it's also why I get a lot of things done and why I'm very good at what I do is because I'm flexible and I have to think outside the box. I have deals where my client wants one thing and the tenant wants another. Like I have one where, a tenant wants to buy a house and they need the money, but my client doesn't want to give all the money because they're afraid that they won't move. And what if they don't buy the house? And so I have to and I told my client, I go, I have to think about that. Like I want you to feel good about entering the deal, but I also don't want the tenants to lose the house because one, they'll be moving out, which is the goal. But two, I want them to be homeowners because that's their dream. So I have to sort of balance like, hey, how do I make this work? And I didn't have an answer. And at 6:52 at night, I still don't 100% have an answer. But if I answer in the moment, it's probably going to be something that's going to bend too much to my client's favor, but probably won't get the deal done. And that just has worked for me because over time I've seen this, I've experienced this. It wasn't like I was born ready to like negotiate and be flexible. Growth mindset makes adjusting easier, which again, all of you guys here have a growth mindset, understanding this, this change is not what I wanted, but it's going to be okay. Or, I'm going to adapt to it. I'm going to deal with it. It's going to make me in the future stronger, and more flexible in other things that I have to do. I won't be so reactionary to things. So it's part of, growing and adapting. And then you can shift from why me to what now, which keeps us moving forward. I, for a while, was like, oh, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? I still sometimes feel why me, usually not about me, but about like other people, like, why is this happening? But it's sort of, you have to get out of that and break out of that and go, okay, how do we pivot? How do we maneuver? How do we handle what we have right now on deck and move forward with it? So again, you don't want to over victimize yourself. You want to accept, hey, this was unexpected. I don't like it. I got to get past it. That was the case when I did a lot of litigation because a lot of the times it was clients that were like, why am I being sued? Like, why me? And I didn't have, oh, I don't know why, but I could say, hey, here's what we have to do going forward. Here's how we can get the best outcome for you. So we are going to go to the first workbook question. Think of a time something changed recently and how did you adapt? So we're going to go into breakout rooms for the student leaders or the alumni here. If you can, kick off the discussion, and then we'll come back. I'm gonna give you guys 4 minutes. That should be enough time, and then we'll come back and share. Okay, let's see. Filtered by. Susan Campos. Can you share with us what your answer was? Or what happened to you recently?
So one of the like the time is more general, just like the changing of senior year or it finally being like the last year. I know for a lot of us like senioritis is kind of hitting, but classes are only getting harder and of course like we still have to like put up as much effort as we did back then. So since classes are actually getting much harder, especially like all like AP math classes, I've tried to like sort of give myself smaller little marks of where I can maybe like go out maybe one day to celebrate me being able to pass a test, or if I did really good on a test, I would try to like do those small things to keep me motivated and keep me still wanting to do the best I could in all the classes.
Yep. Adapting can also mean like self-care, like recognizing that maybe you are too hard on yourself and you can adapt being like a little more gentle. If I have, like I've had a really stressful week, maybe I'll go get myself like a coffee. I'll do a lap around Pop Mart. I have been, now that I had all the Labubus and all of the Bikini Bottom buddies, I'm like never buying a Pop Mart keychain again. But I do like to walk around the store and like look how cute everything is. But those are like little things that you have to do. And you have to like always do that, no matter how old you get, no matter if you get married, if you have kids. You always have to kind of carve out a piece of time for yourself. And that is also part of adapting because when things change, being a freshman is different than being a senior. Being single is different than having, a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And then you have to sort of adapt to having friends, right? Like, how do you balance spending time with your significant other versus, hey, your friends miss you, want to hang out? All of those things come into play also for adapting. It's not just necessarily workload or schoolwork, but also just, things are changing in your life and you want to keep in touch with friends, but you're also trying to balance that, I have a job, I have my parents, I have this, I have that. So, amongst all those things, make sure you're carving out time for yourself, space for yourself, rewards for yourself. It's how you keep yourself sane. Okay, let's see. I think we're doing good on time. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, contingency planning. So it helps us stay ready and not stressed. Again, this is kind of a new concept, even for me, because I've never really contingency planned. I sort of just wing it most of the time. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but a lot of it, I just let things come at me as they do and I address them. But a contingency plan is simply having a backup move, right? It doesn't have to be like a full backup. Like if my life doesn't look like this, it'll look like this. No, it doesn't have to be incredibly complicated. It's just like, hey, if I don't do good in this one because maybe I took on an AP class that I thought I was going to like and I'm really struggling in. Maybe you adapt and, not take a loss, but realize, hey, I'm really struggling this one. I'm okay if I get a B here. Maybe I'll go and get an A in this other one because, I'm doing better. Or I understand it more, I'm more interested in it. So that's also kind of a backup plan, right? Or, hey, I wanted to get this class, but it filled up. So my backup is I'll take this other one. Sometimes people's backup plans actually become their future plans. Like, for instance, what I do was not like what I was always going to do. It came about during the pandemic and laws had changed. And so I said, okay, I'm going to sort of do this thing. And then I realized that I really liked doing it and that what I was doing, I really didn't like. So I was like, maybe the backup is I will negotiate move out agreements. Then it became sort of these new laws were permanent, they weren't temporary anymore. So then everybody came to me and needed me to do it. And so my backup plan, which was doing these kinds of things because during, a time they were the only option around, to like, now this is actually my business and I really love it. So that was, one, being adaptable, but two, kind of having a backup plan. Another backup plan is doing mediations, which is something that I get trained on and now I'll be doing going forward. So, should laws change in what I'm doing, my backup is I can use those same skill sets and do mediations. And that's kind of career backup, but I think you get where I'm getting at. We prepare for the problems most likely to happen. Yes. Crazy outlier change is not what we can expect for, and we shouldn't have to plan or be expected to plan for that. But we can prepare for things that we think can, or we can foresee being problems or hiccups that might happen. Um, so perhaps you anticipate, hey, I need a ride to the bus to go to the field trip. And I know, mom and dad are working late, so they might be too tired. So maybe I should ask my sibling or a friend if they can pick me up, or maybe, a family member just in case my parents aren't up to taking me or getting up early in the morning. That could be something that you can foresee. What you can't foresee is perhaps, someone's car breaks down, right? So you could have the alternative option of calling friends. Hey, could you pick me up? Those are sort of problems that you can foresee. It's possible, not likely, but it's possible to happen. So those are the kind of things that, to some degree, we all sort of intuitively know. We have an idea like, I know if, if the car breaks down, maybe I'll Uber. Maybe I'll call a friend. I know someone who lives by who can take me. We have family members. So those are things that we can plan for. But when you have something that comes out of the blue, your contingency plan really becomes your ability to adapt, right? To think on the fly. So when you're coming with a contingency plan, try to anticipate as much as you reasonably can what could go wrong and then have a backup for that. They also reduce panic. So, for instance, if you're trying to get somewhere and your ride doesn't work out and you have a backup, you're not going to be as panicked. Like, it's okay. I thought maybe this could happen. So, I have a backup ride, right? So, those things, the point of having the backup plan is in the event things don't go your way, you're a little less panicked. And you want to make them very simple, right? If you have a very convoluted backup plan that you can't understand or are contingent on a lot of factors you have no control over, that's not going to be very helpful and will probably stress you out. So make it very simple. Make it sort of something within your control, something you can anticipate, and something that you feel you can pull off, right? You don't want to make it so complicated for yourself. Some simple backup plan ideas, saving files to the cloud. I have Dropbox for work, but I save like everything to Dropbox. I have like all my files in Dropbox. And it helps because then like I have a dispute with my insurance. And I said, "Hey, my doctor sent me to this other doctor. Why do I have to pay for it?" And they were like, "Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Why do I have to pay for it?" And I go, "Look, I got this other letter. I have it saved in the Dropbox where they said I could go to the doctor. So why am I being billed?" And that's because I'm very organized. Also, I don't want to pay for this bill because I pay for insurance. So the fact that I had that was really easy for me to be able to pull up that file and tell them on the phone, "Hey, but I'm already approved for this." Setting two alarms, right? So if you're the kind of person that, that you're gonna, on a Friday night, you're gonna stay out late, you're gonna stay up very late, but Saturday morning you have something to do, maybe you put two alarms. You put like the beginning alarm where you like wake yourself up, but you're like still half asleep, but you're like aware you need to get up, and then the second alarm where you actually have to like roll out of bed. Take photos of instructions, right? So if you see something and it has, "Hey, this is what you need to do," wherever you're at, take photos of it. So those are, again, simple steps, but they help you in the long run. So that, if you forget something, which we can't remember everything all the time, you have this backup plan. And then the best backup plan is the ability to pivot completely, right? So maybe your backup plan is to go on vacation to this one place. In the last minute it changes. Well, maybe you can go to a completely different place and still have a really good time. Maybe you planned to study poli sci, and then you realized, I don't really like poli sci. I like biology. You could completely pivot, and that's okay. Maybe pivot into something that's sort of in the same school thought or the same kind of, I guess, part of the university, like track, but maybe you do a different thing in that track. You completely pivot. I had a friend who pivoted 3 times. He went from accounting to pre-med to dental school to medical school. He pivoted several times. So, and each one of them he realized he didn't like until finally he realized he wanted to be a doctor and not a dentist. So, I felt like maybe he could have foreseen that earlier, but everyone has their own path. For you, just know that it's okay if things completely change, if they go a different way, if it's not exactly what you expected, but be willing to change and be okay with it and give yourself the ability to process those things, prepare for those things, and then know if it's something completely out of your contingency plan, you had no backup plan for it, that, give yourself the breathing room to figure out what your next step might be. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to work on this workbook question. Think of an everyday problem that might throw your day off. Not waking up to your alarm, forgetting your phone at home, missing your bus. What are simple backup plans that could help you navigate what to do next? So I'll give you guys 3 minutes and then we'll come back and share. Oops, I'm on mute. Okay. Eduardo, why don't you share with us what problem might throw off your day and how you would plan for that?
I wrote about how sometimes I just wake up late and I don't have time to eat breakfast in the morning, and then I get stuck all day just feeling hungry, and that kind of throws me off. And I guess the solution to it was just like maybe preparing snacks beforehand or just setting up multiple alarms to make sure I don't wake up late.
Yes. Backup plan. Actually, plan one is maybe making lunch the night before. Backup plan is like setting two alarms so that you give yourself time to wake up and make lunch. And then like third backup plan is having like a go-to snack, maybe like in your room or in the kitchen, like that's my snack spot. And you get like two, three snacks. Maybe something tasty, something little, good for you, like maybe like a protein bar that would fill you up, but it's quick and easy to grab and pack. So that's actually good. That was pretty good. Those are things I think we all struggle with is getting up late and not having enough to eat. I was like that in school. I like never packed lunch and I didn't have like meal tickets and my friend would just always give me like whatever she didn't want from her lunch. So I just would always bum it off of her. But I could have, in hindsight, definitely prepared myself. But I would always be hungry all day. Yes. And you could go through that exercise in a number of different things that we do. But again, a lot of these things, like these small life annoyances, they're usually kind of our fault. And we usually probably can solve them just by being a little disciplined. Okay, let's go to our next slide. Okay. Adaptability and contingency planning. Okay. So confidence grows when surprises don't derail us. Okay. So when something completely causes us to crash out, we do not get confidence. I tell my kids, rule one, no crashing out. Mainly, my son has the habit of crashing out. I tell him no crashing out. And he knows. And I tell him, I go, what's rule number one? He'd be like, no crashing out. And so when we did the Lego Mona Lisa, I told him, I go, we can't crash out. He goes, okay, I won't crash out. And we got it done. It took us like 2 hours, but it was a surprise to us. There was times where we got pieces wrong. We had to like pop them out. If anyone does Legos, the little like popper thing, but the pieces are all weird, so it was like kind of hard to do it. And so, it built confidence in us. I feel like we can now do more Legos together, but we didn't let it derail us. And then during that whole process, we took a break. I go, hey, we're doing too much right now. We're getting a little too tired. We're getting sloppy. Let's take a break and get some hot cocoa. And we did. And we eventually finished it. But what happens with sort of things changing and not going the way we want them to is that we think it's like a bad reflection on us. And then in hindsight, you feel like, why did I crash out so hard? But then you just like, you get overwhelmed, right? And what makes us more confident in the future is that these things actually went sideways on us. Because if everything went according to plan all of the time, the one time it didn't, we would really fall apart. But when these things happen to us and we take a step back, we breathe, we figure it out, we realize it's not that bad. And being an attorney where I'm like holding like the fate, not the fate of people's lives, mainly their financial fate in my hand, you feel like stressed because you're like, it's like I didn't do it. And like after the fact, I'm trying to fix it. And so I had a lot of confidence because I realized at the end of the day, everything is pretty much solvable. It's annoying. There's really annoying cases, there's really smooth cases, but for the most part, there usually is an end and usually things do resolve. Um, we perform better when we expect change. So, in that sense, it keeps us on our toes. It allows us to be creative. And it's sort of like these things, when change happens, it's like sort of like stretching and exercising, right? It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us nimble. If we don't have change, if we don't, put ourselves in the position of having things change, right? Getting out of our comfort zone, then we atrophy and we're never going to be, able to kind of grow or get better at things or experience new things that will shape us to be more successful. We can focus on what we can control, and that leads to better decisions. So there's always things that, like when I have cases, I can't control how the other side reacts. I can anticipate what I think they're gonna do. Or I have like a feel like I think they will say this, I think they will counter with this, I think this is where they're at. But that's, based on my collective experience dealing with these kinds of cases. But all I can control is on my end. Hey, this is what I think we should go with. This is us acting in good faith. This is what we should go back with. And if opposing counsel is mean, if opposing counsel crashes out on me, if their client crashes out, I can't control that. All I can control is how I react to it. And I've had people flip out on the phone. I've had people yell at me. I've had people call me names. I've had people cry. I've had people do a lot of things in dealing with cases. And not at every moment can you kind of expect it. But for the most part, I regulate my emotions and I keep very calm. And sometimes I'll tell someone I don't have an answer. Or I try to sit down in the sense sit down, but listen to the person on the phone like, well, tell me more about what's bothering you. And I try to diffuse the situation. And so that's what I can control. I can't control how other people feel. I can't tell them that their feelings are not warranted. I can just say, hey, that's not my intention to make you feel that way. Or I can regulate myself. And when you're able to keep yourself calm, a lot of the times you can calm down the other person. And then that's when you can move forward, right? So if you have a friend and you guys are out somewhere and something goes wrong, maybe you get lost. If you guys are both freaking out, nothing's going to go right. But if one person's freaking out and the other person can stay calm, you have a better chance of calming down the other person and putting your two heads together and coming up with a solution. Backup plans prevent us from freezing. So freezing is kind of that like, uh-oh, I don't know what to do. When you have a backup plan, you have at least sort of the next step. So you don't feel necessarily stuck, okay, I can go this way. I can do this. That didn't work. Let me try this. And, sometimes freezing is like, okay. But for the most part, freezing is the sense that you don't want to feel stuck or immobile or like you can't overcome something. And then these skills will carry into college, work, and life. Um, that's self-explanatory. Um, when you go to college, you're going to meet very different personalities, which you think that everyone's the same, but they're not. I mean, someone who comes from another state will have a completely different way of life, the way of thinking, the way maybe they even talk, different beliefs. And so you'll have to adapt to the way that they are in the way that they think. Like, if you're raised in LA, been in LA for a long time, it's very fast paced. It can be laid back, but people are always moving, they're always hustling, there's always things to do, especially because we have good weather. We're always out and about. But someone who maybe grew up on the East Coast where they have severe weather and a lot of the year they're inside because it's really cold and they might have, different way of doing things. Maybe they're not as fast paced. You're gonna have to like adapt to that because maybe you're like ready to go on a project and maybe they're like, I'm gonna take this a little bit slower, right? So you have to kind of ebb and flow with people. It'll be true when you have personal relationships, when you get married, your significant others are gonna be different than you. And then like when you have kids, you're gonna have kids and they're gonna have part of your personality, part of the other parent's personality, and then they're gonna have their own completely wild personality. You'll ebb and flow with that as well. So just being able to be flexible and take a breather and a step back will help you in all sorts of life situations. So let's go into our last workbook question. Yes. I'm going to give you guys what is one area of your life where being more adaptable or having a simple backup plan would make you feel more confident in control. I'm going to give you guys 1 minute to answer this because it's a pretty simple question. And we're going to get 90 seconds to finish up our workbooks anyways. So I'll give you guys 1 minute and then I'm going to talk about the next class, give you a little bit more time, and then we'll close out. Okay, so let's go to the next class review. Thank you. So next class, we're going to talk about battling indecision, right? Sometimes we call this analysis paralysis in real estate when we have too much information and we don't know what to do. We're going to learn how to handle choice overload, mental fatigue, perfectionism, and how that can stall and create indecision. We're going to practice limiting options, setting up helpful defaults, and using simple decision-making frameworks to reduce complexity and gain clarity. And we're going to talk about adding structure and aligning choices with our values to build confidence to make decisions that support progress instead of paralysis. So, indecision is a thing that I think we all face. My best friend claims he's indecisive because he's a Libra, and I don't entirely disagree with him, but also sometimes we're just indecisive. So I'm going to give you guys another 90 seconds to finish up your workbooks. If you can, please submit them tonight so you don't forget. And then I'm going to close out class at the end. Okay, so again, if you haven't signed up and you want to go, there's 11 spots available. You get 4 points. The link is in the chat. You can RSVP for that. We also have an Ignite series speaker coming up. We don't know which one it will be, but you have until February 27th to RSVP. Series, the speaker will be March 2nd. Also, if you want to be a student leader, the form is now open so you can sign up to be it. The deadline is February 12th, so tomorrow at 5 p.m. So just get on that as well. So if you turn in your workbook and you also want to be a student leader, you could do those almost simultaneously. Other than that, I will let you off for the evening, and I hope to see some of you guys, maybe a lot of you guys, on Saturday.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Sasha.
Night.